The moment you decide to assume a new state of consciousness, you begin the journey of transformation. It does not require a lifetime. It does not require endless striving. It takes 2 days or less, if you would only focus. You are not waiting on the world to change. You are not waiting on circumstances to align. The only delay is your attention, scattered and divided, given to the seen instead of the unseen. The outer world is nothing but a mirror reflecting your dominant inner state. When you understand this, you stop pleading with external things to shift, and instead, you bring all your awareness to what you are imagining. You bring your full attention to the end result. Not how it will come or when, but simply that it already is. This is the secret. To live in the end, persistently, faithfully, without looking back. When you fix your mind on a new reality, when you saturate your thoughts with the feeling that it is already done, things move swiftly. Time bends to attention. What would have taken weeks, months, even years collapses into days, because creation is finished. You are only selecting which finished reality to embody. That selection is made not by wishing, not by hoping, but by entering the feeling of the wish fulfilled and refusing to come out. The law responds to your inner conviction. It cannot fail. If you dare to remain faithful to the unseen and deny the evidence of the senses, you will see movement, not in some distant future, but now. Shift your focus, withdraw it from what is and place it fully on what you desire to be. Saturate yourself in that state. Let every inner conversation, every daydream, every quiet moment echo the reality you have chosen. It does not take a miracle. It takes a decision. It takes inner discipline. You do not need to do more. You need to imagine more clearly. You need to feel it more deeply. And then allow it. The outer must conform to the inner, for it is law. Give it your undivided attention for 2 days. Guard your mind. Live in the end. Watch how quickly the world rearranges itself to match your assumption. Focus is not merely a suggestion, it is the divine lever through which worlds are shifted. When you understand that what you give your attention to becomes your experience, you begin to treat your attention as sacred currency. You no longer squander it on appearances, on doubts, on temporary discomforts. You become deliberate, intentional, inwardly exact. Focus is not hard, it is simple. But it requires sincerity. It asks that you stop entertaining the alternatives to your desire. You can't say you want something and then spend your day imagining its absence. You can't claim to believe in your vision and then continually feed your mind the evidence of its delay. When you focus, truly focus, your whole being becomes aligned with the assumption that it is already yours. The great misconception is that change takes time. But time is only a reflection of your state of consciousness. When you are divided within one moment believing, the next moment doubting, your world responds in the same fragmented, delayed way. But when you become unified in your desire, when you see only what you choose to see, when you no longer argue for your limitations or explain away your progress, the universe begins to bend in your direction. You feel it before you see it. You know it before it arrives. And in that knowing, the world starts to mirror back your conviction. Focus draws the invisible into visibility. You can stand in the middle of black and yet feel abundance so strongly within you that the outer world has no choice but to reflect it. You can experience complete inner transformation in a moment of silent, determined focus. And yet people often mistake this power as something passive, as though imagining were less real than acting. But the inner act is the root, the outer is only the branch. Without focus, action is scattered. Without focus, motion is meaningless. But with focus, even stillness is potent. Even silence creates. You are constantly manifesting what you are dominantly focused on. Whether you call it good or bad, it is showing up because it holds your attention. That is why you must become aware of where your focus goes when you are not watching. What are you assuming in the quiet moments, in the idle thoughts, in the background chatter of your mind? That is where your creation is taking place. And that is why 2 days of pure focus can shift everything, because you are no longer dancing between two states. You have chosen one and you live there. You think from it, you feel from it, you breathe it. There is no power in begging the world to change. The power is in changing your internal conversation. If you focus on your desire with feeling and belief, it begins to crystallize. But the moment you shift back into doubt, you dissolve what you've started to build. That's why persistence in focus matters more than effort. A few moments of pure, undistracted focus are more effective than hours of mechanical affirmations or mindless visualization. It is the quality of your inner attention that determines the speed and clarity of your manifestation. Your imagination must be treated like a sacred space. What you allow in there shapes your future. Most people are careless with it. They imagine fear, they rehearse failure, they replay past pain, and then they wonder why their lives echo those feelings. But when you make the decision to use your imagination constructively, to enter the scene of your wish fulfilled and dwell in it with all your senses, you ignite the law that governs all creation. The law does not respond to half-hearted desire. It responds to vivid, sustained assumption. An assumption is simply what you focus on and accept as real. Focus does not mean strain. It means clarity. It means choosing again and again to return to your desire every time your mind tries to wander into fear. It means catching the thought that says, "This is taking too long," and replacing it with "It is already done." Focus is not something you do once and forget. It becomes a new habit, a new standard for how you think and feel. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. The more you train your mind to think from your desired ends, the less convincing the world of appearances becomes. Nothing has to change for you to focus. You can do it right now, wherever you are, regardless of your circumstances. The world may be screaming the opposite of what you want, but if you are willing to turn within and focus only on the state you choose, you begin the process of its unfolding. The world is slow to catch up sometimes, but it always does. It must. Because the outer is powerless without the inner. You are the operant power. You are the cause. And focus is your most potent tool. The reason 2 days of pure focus can create dramatic change is because it condenses energy. It concentrates your power. Think of a magnifying glass. It gathers light and directs it into a single point, and that point becomes so hot it burns through matter. The same principle applies here. When your thoughts, feelings, and assumptions are all directed toward a single end, you generate a momentum that cannot be denied. Most people never experience this because they keep shifting their focus. But when you stop scattering your energy, when you gather it inward and pour it into your chosen vision, something remarkable begins to happen. The old patterns break. The new reality forms. Focus collapses the unnecessary. It ends the confusion. It eliminates the delays. Because what you focus on with faith becomes your world. Not because you force it, but because you embody it. You become the thing long before you see the thing. And then the seen begins to reflect the unseen. Focus is not waiting, it is becoming. It is entering the state internally regardless of what is showing up externally. The shift begins when you decide that your imagination is the only reality that matters. And you prove it by returning to it again and again until the outer world has no choice but to follow. The outer world is a faithful servant to the inner world. What you see around you, the people, the events, the conditions, is not independent of you. It is not happening to you. It is happening through you. Your outer experience is simply the printout of the inner assumptions you carry, whether consciously or unconsciously. The moment you truly grasp this, everything changes. You stop reacting and start assuming. You stop waiting and start selecting. There is no one to change but self, for self is the projector and the world is only the screen. It is tempting to believe that life is coming at you, that you are subject to random occurrences and unpredictable forces. But that illusion fades when you observe the pattern. Every time you shift your internal story, the world gradually aligns with it. This is not coincidence. This is law. The world cannot help but conform to the dominant pattern of your inner speech, your felt beliefs, your emotional tones. If you dwell in the feeling of rejection, you meet it everywhere. If you saturate yourself with a feeling of love, you find it mirrored in unexpected places. The world reflects the state you most consistently occupy. This reflection is not punishment or reward, it is principle. It is how reality works. The outer world has no creative power of its own. It only echoes back to you the images you have impressed upon the subconscious. These impressions are not made through effort, but through acceptance. Whatever you accept as true, whatever you persist in feeling, becomes impressed upon the deeper mind, and then the outer world takes on its shape. You are not dealing with chance. You are dealing with reflection. This is why it is said, do not try to change the mirror. You would not stand before your reflection, angry that it does not smile, and attempt to move the mouth on the glass. You know instinctively that the reflection changes only when you change. The same applies to life. People are not acting independently of your inner world. They are playing roles in accordance with what you believe about them, what you expect, and what you accept as your truth. This does not mean you are to blame for others' behavior. It means you are the author of your experience of them. You are always experiencing your own assumption and nothing more. So if your world seems harsh, unloving, or resistant, it is not because the world is broken. It is because within you there is a state being occupied that matches that condition. Change that state, and you will find that the same people begin to respond differently, or else they fade from your experience altogether. The world reorganizes itself with precision when you shift your inner stance. No outer force resists you except the echo of your own inner doubt. You must therefore begin to view every outer event not as a problem to fix, but as a message. What is this situation revealing to me about my inner state? What belief must I be holding that this keeps repeating? This is not about guilt, it is about awareness. If you understand that your world is a mirror, you no longer feel powerless. You no longer need to fight circumstances. You simply assume the state that matches the outcome you desire and allow the mirror to catch up. This process does not require strain, it requires consistency. The mirror does not change instantly, but it does change faithfully. You must hold the image, the inner conviction, long enough for it to reflect back. That is why you are called to dwell in the end, to think from the state not of it, to live, walk, and breathe as though your desire were already real, not because you are pretending, but because you understand the mirror reflects what you are being. The outer world is neutral until you define it. Two people can walk through the same experience and see completely different things, because their inner states are different. One sees opportunity, the other sees lack. One feels love, the other feels fear. It is not the world that change, it is their perception. And perception is shaped by belief. What you believe to be true of yourself and your world becomes your lived experience. That is the creative act. You do not see the world as it is, you see it as you are. And so, when you look around and see lack, limitation, or conflict, it is not a signal to panic or force change. It is a gentle invitation to turn within and ask, what must I be believing right now? What state am I dwelling in? You are never punished for your assumptions, you are only shown them. The world gives back what you give it inwardly. It cannot resist you, for it has no mind of its own. It is animated by your attention and shaped by your conviction. Even those things that seem to come uninvited have roots in some unseen state once entertained. You may not remember planting the seed, but it grew because it was allowed. When you realize this, you take back the authority you once gave to circumstances. You no longer need to wait for outer validation. You no longer seek proof before you believe. Instead, you move first. You assume the feeling, you dwell in the vision, and you let the world catch up. And it will, because it must. This reflection is perfect. If you are not seeing what you want, you have not yet assumed it deeply enough. This is not criticism, it is clarity. There is no need to chase or manipulate. The only thing you must do is dwell in the state. The rest is reflection. People show up to confirm your new assumption. Opportunities appear where there were none. Conditions shift to match the tone of your inner conversations. You are never asking life to give you something new. You are simply aligning yourself with a version of life that already exists within your infinite potential. There are infinite versions of you, each one expressing a different state of being. The version you experience now is the one you are most aligned with. Shift the state and the version of life you meet will change. You do not have to move the world, you only need to move within. When you claim abundance inwardly, the outer responds. When you claim peace inwardly, the outer responds. You are not at the mercy of anything outside you, for there is nothing outside you that was not first within you. To test this is to prove it. Do not take these words as theory. Choose a state, occupy it with feeling, speak from it, act from it, rest in it, and watch. You will see the world begin to change its tone because the mirror cannot help but reflect what is placed before it. There is no waiting on the mirror to smile. You smile first, you love first, you trust first, you embody the thing first, and then it appears, not as magic, but as law. So the outer world is your echo. And once you understand that, you no longer chase the echo, you create the sound. The moment you impress something upon the subconscious mind, it begins to move. It begins to rearrange the elements of your world, drawing people, circumstances, and opportunities together in perfect harmony with what you have accepted as true. This movement is not always visible to the naked eye. Often it appears that nothing is happening, that the world remains unchanged. But beneath the surface, in the unseen realm, everything is shifting. It is as if the universe is orchestrating a divine composition, each note falling into place, each instrument aligning to the tune of your inner conviction. The subconscious does not delay, it does not argue, it does not ask whether the thing you desire is logical, possible, or deserved. It receives the feeling, the assumption, and begins to bring it into form. This is why the delay we perceive is never in the power, but in our own consistency. If you say you believe, but then contradict it with doubt, you are pressing pause and play at the same time. The key is not to fight for what you want, but to surrender to the assumption that it is already done. What appears to take time is only the unfolding of the unseen into the seen. The seed does not sprout the moment it is placed in the soil, but the moment it touches earth, it begins its process. Just because you do not see roots forming does not mean the seed is inactive. In the same way, your assumptions begin to work the moment you accept them. They begin to filter your awareness, drawing your attention to evidence that supports them. They begin to shape your reactions, your moods, your expectations. And soon, without effort, they begin to shift the external scene. If you can grasp this, you will no longer need to wait years for your desire to show up. Time becomes irrelevant. The only thing that matters is the depth of the feeling. The deeper the impression on the subconscious, the quicker the outer rearrangement. This is why something can happen in 2 days or less. Because your faith in the unseen is unshaken. You stop checking the outer world for signs and instead live from the inner conviction that it is done. That conviction itself is the cause. The outer is just the effect. The movement is swift when the assumption is pure. A pure assumption is one that is not mingled with doubt, fear, or contradiction. It is simple. It is childlike. It says, I am, and does not argue with appearances. It rests in its own truth. When you reach this level of inner knowing, things begin to happen quickly. You may wake up one morning and everything seems the same, but by evening the shift has come. A phone call, a message, a new opportunity. What you assumed has moved from within to without. But the process began long before the event arrived. It began the moment you believed. That is why you must treat your imagination as the sacred creative act. Every time you assume something, you are placing an order to the infinite. You are instructing the subconscious, and the subconscious is always obedient. It does not know right or wrong. It knows only what you accept as true. It is the silent builder, the tireless servant, the invisible molder of all that you see. When you saturate it with a feeling of success, it does not argue, it creates success. When you fill it with the tones of love, it does not hesitate, it brings love to you. It cannot help it, because it is its nature to reflect what is impressed upon it. To live by this law is to walk by faith, not by sight. You do not need outer proof before you believe. In fact, you will never see outer proof until you first believe. Belief is the substance. Feeling is the foundation. You cannot trick the subconscious with words alone. It responds to the emotional charge behind the words. This is why your inner speech must be saturated with conviction, not mere repetition. It is the felt meaning that imprints the inner world and moves the outer. The movement is not bound by logic. What seems impossible to reason is natural to imagination. The path the subconscious takes to fulfill your assumption may bypass all that you think necessary. It may use channels you would never consider. But it will find its way. The law never fails. The assumption creates the condition, not the other way around. And so, when you feel the need to fix the world, to hustle, to beg, to plead, pause. The movement you seek will come from within, not without. The shortest path to your desire is stillness of assumption. When you hold the feeling of the wish fulfilled and do not waver, you give the subconscious its clear directive. And when the mind is no longer pulled in opposite directions, manifestation accelerates. 2 days or less is not a miracle. It is simply what happens when inner clarity meets outer readiness. The world rushes to comply when it meets no resistance. And resistance exists only in the mind that doubts, fears, or hesitates. So let go of the idea that change must take time. Time is only a measure of belief. What you believe takes long. What you believe is close comes close. The law is neutral. It responds to you, not to the clock. If you can feel now what it would feel like to have your desire already complete and do so without contradiction, you will find that the outer world bends quickly to your inner world. The reason most do not experience fast results is not because the law is slow, but because the mind is divided. Undivided attention is power. When your focus is single, the subconscious moves with speed. It is as if the whole of creation aligns to bring you what you have already claimed inwardly. There is no conflict, no confusion, no delay. The bridge of incidents appears as if by magic, but it is not magic, it is principle. You walk into the world you have created in silence. You shake hands with the character you wrote in imagination. You experience the reality that once lived only in feeling. Everything begins with the inner scene. It is there that the real movement starts. When you imagine a scene clearly, when you feel it as though it were happening now, you are laying the tracks for the outer train to arrive. You may not know when or how, but you know that it must. The subconscious will take care of the when and how. Your only responsibility is the assumption, the feeling that it is already so. And once impressed, you must persist, not with effort, but with knowing, with calm, with the quiet joy of someone who has already received. If you find yourself checking for signs, remember that the sign you are looking for is the feeling itself. The feeling is the substance. Everything else is shadow. The world is not the cause, it is the echo. And when the echo hasn't yet sounded, do not panic. Do not question the process. Strengthen the cause. Return to the inner act. Re-enter the state. Let the feeling deepen. And soon, without strain, the outer world will follow, because it must. That is its nature. It has no power of its own. It only reflects what you have claimed within. The mind, when truly focused, is the most powerful instrument in creation. There is no delay in manifestation except the delay we introduce through distraction. To focus is to gather all of your inner faculties and direct them toward a single aim without wavering. It is not about effort in the way the world understands effort. It is not about trying harder, pushing, or striving. It is about inward attention, about the absolute absorption in a state that excludes all else. The moment your mind becomes single-eyed, the moment you can hold a feeling or scene in your imagination without deviation, the world begins to reshape itself in accordance with that impression. Distraction is the great thief. Every time you entertain conflicting ideas, one moment believing, the next doubting, you neutralize your own power. You scatter your energy across multiple states and then wonder why nothing changes. But the moment you become still within And the moment your inner eye holds only one vision, one feeling, one conviction, the machinery of the subconscious begins its work with precision. Focus is not a luxury. It is the key. Without it, even the most vivid imagination will falter. With it, even the faintest assumption can move mountains. The truth is, it does not take years to manifest a new condition. It does not even take weeks. When the focus is pure, when the image is undisturbed and the feeling is real, the time between assumption and manifestation can collapse in mere moments. But to hold that state, to persist in it without giving room to fear, to doubt, to appearances, that is the discipline. Not the discipline of struggle, but the discipline of belief. The discipline of returning again and again to the wish fulfilled, until it becomes more real to you than the world around you. Most people do not fail because they lack imagination. They fail because they do not persist in one assumption long enough to see it bloom. They plant the seed of desire, but dig it up with fear and contradictory thought. Focus is the act of planting, leaving the seed in place. It is the trust that what you have impressed will be expressed, not because you force it, but because that is the law. When you focus, you are not waiting for something to happen. You are assuming it has already happened. That assumption, when unbroken, becomes the very substance of what is to come. The external world cannot hold out against a focused mind. Appearances may seem stubborn, but they are nothing but reflections, and no reflection can resist the image held before the mirror. When you hold a new state within, the old must fall away. The circumstances that no longer match your inner reality must dissolve. New ones will form, not because you chase them, and claiming happens in stillness, in focus, in unwavering inner acceptance. This is why 2 days or less is not only possible, it is natural when focus is achieved. The delay is not in reality, the delay is in distraction. The more quickly you return to the inner scene, the faster you allow the subconscious to continue its perfect automatic work. You don't have to know how. You don't have to figure out steps or strategies. You only have to be faithful to the state you've chosen. The moment you claim it with inner conviction, the path begins to form beneath your feet. To focus is to fall in love with the new state. It is to let your senses dwell in that new world. It is to walk as if it were already true. Talk to yourself from the new state. Think from the new identity. Respond to life from the new version of you. The more you do this, the more your focus intensifies, then the more your focus sharpens, the quicker the movement. This is not fantasy, this is law. The subconscious is always listening, always obeying, always creating from your dominant feeling. A distracted mind is a divided kingdom. It wants one thing, but believes another. It affirms a desire, but prepares for disappointment. This division creates delay, not because the manifestation is difficult, but because the message is unclear. The moment you make up your mind and keep it made up, the results begin to flow. The results are always in proportion to your inner clarity. If your focus is full of maybes, what ifs, or I hope so, then your result will reflect that hesitation. But if your focus is built on I am, I have, it is done, the outer world must conform. There is a silence that accompanies true focus. It is the stillness not of inaction, but of inner certainty. It is the quiet knowing that you have already received. You do not speak of the desire as something coming. You speak from the end. You think from the end. And in that calm assurance, the world bows. You do not need to hustle or manipulate. The law of assumption works in stillness. The one who knows does not need to be loud. The one who believes does not need to ask again and again. Once is enough. If it's done in truth, with feeling and without contradiction, train yourself to stay. Stay in the scene, stay in the mood, stay in the state. Let the world do what it must. Let others react as they will. Your job is not to manage the outer, but to remain faithful to the inner. That is your power. That is your responsibility. No one else can do it for you. If your focus is pure, then the world will have no choice but to reflect that purity. This is not superstition. This is structure. This is the design of consciousness itself. Even when distractions arise, and they will, you gently return. Do not fight the thoughts, simply choose again. Choose the scene. choose the feeling, choose the assumption. Every time you do this, you strengthen the pathway in your mind, you deepen the impression, you build the bridge, and soon your focus becomes natural, it becomes your dwelling place. And from that place, all things come. What matters is not how long you can hold it, but how often you return. The subconscious does not count minutes. It receives impressions. A deep, vivid impression can outweigh hours of passive thinking. This is why a moment of intense focus can move the needle more than days of shallow affirmation. It is the quality of your attention, not the quantity. Learn to sink into this state. Feel it until it becomes real, and let that reality be enough. When you realize that the outer world is not fixed but fluid, you stop giving it so much power. You stop letting it distract you. You stop letting it dictate your mood or your belief. You withdraw your attention from what you do not want and give it fully to what you do. This is not denial. This is creation. This is the art of assuming responsibility for your experience. Not through effort, but through focus. Not through action, but through imagination. There is no power in panic. There is no magic in worry. All creative power lies in attention. What you give your inner attention to grows. What you feed with your focus manifests. And so the question becomes, what are you focused on? Not just occasionally, but habitually. Because that is what you're creating, whether you like it or not. And when you take the reins and focus deliberately, when you dwell in the wish fulfilled, as if nothing else exists, the outer world bends quickly to your will. Not because you forced it, but because you aligned with the truth of it within. Every state you can imagine already exists. There is nothing to create, only to accept. The infinite version of you, the one who is healed, wealthy, loved, successful, peaceful, is not in the distance, not in the future, not something to become. It is already real, already alive in the dimension of imagination, waiting for your attention, to bring it into expression. The idea that you must strive or work hard to arrive at a better version of yourself is only a product of limited understanding. The truth is far simpler and infinitely more powerful. You shift into the version of you that already is. You do this not by effort, but by identification. There is no external journey to the life you want. The only journey is internal. You do not move through time and space to find success or fulfillment. You move through states of consciousness. You pass from one state to another not by changing the world, but by changing your self-concept. When you embody the new identity, everything around you rearranges to match it. It is not the outer world that makes you different. It is your assumption of difference that transforms the outer world. You become by being. And being begins with inner conviction. Most live as if the world is fixed and they are reacting to it. But this is the great illusion. The world is not primary, it is secondary. The cause is not outside, the cause is within. When you see yourself as someone who lacks, you confirm the lack. When you dwell in the state of not yet, of almost, of maybe one day, you postpone the very reality you desire. But when you assume now that you are already the one you wish to be, even without evidence, even without signs, you begin the greatest transformation. You dissolve the false identity and step into the eternal self that was waiting all along. This is not a process of pretending. It is not wishful thinking. It is an act of conscious acceptance. It is the realization that you are not here to beg life to give you something. You are here to claim the truth that has always been yours. When you say, I am, you are not describing a future possibility. You are choosing a present reality. You are not hoping something might happen. You are declaring what already is within the unseen realm. And the unseen, once accepted, becomes the seen. Everything in your world today is the result of a previous assumption. And everything in your tomorrow is being formed by what you assume now. If you constantly affirm that change takes time, that manifestation is hard, that you must wait and struggle and earn your desires, then that will be your experience. But if you realize that identity is a choice, and that every state of consciousness is available now, You release time, you release effort. You begin to occupy the version of you that needs no improvement, no fixing, no more becoming, only expression.